Let's go. Recording is running. Welcome, everyone, to the October edition of the DeFiChain Engineering and Community Call. My name is Fabio, and I'm doing today's moderation. There was a suggestion by community and a volunteer that wants to jump in and help out with moderation from next month onwards. Because there were several announcements that we want to have a smooth transition into the next year, and that the community can get more actively involved in, let's say, these regular schedules. And we have Pushy here that wants to take on the moderation from November onwards into next year. We are doing this in a smooth manner, meaning today is basically the day or the moment where I introduce him to all of you guys, and next month onwards I kind of help him out to get started, and then into the next year he's going to take care of moderation just by himself. So as usual, these calls, I know not everybody can make it because of the Singapore European time zone. They are going to be recorded. Tomorrow we're going to release the first YouTube version of it, and then the day after tomorrow there will be a comprehensive blog post that reviews everything that is discussed. Ahead of time, there was an option to submit questions. We're going to drop into them at the end of this call. I had a brief check, and as far as I could see, there were no additional questions added. Regardless, I'm gonna add something towards the end of that call. But yeah, with that said, I want to give over the mic to Prasanna for the usual flow. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Fabio. Yeah, nice to have someone else start coming in as well. That's nice to hear. So this one, I think we're pretty much finally ready for the hard fork. Yeah, so it was released last week, and everything should be set to go. So this time, I thought we'll just take a slight step back. We'll answer more questions, and since the hard fork is done, the team is prepping infrastructure and all the elements to it. So meanwhile, we'll just go through a little bit on what's going to happen next, so people are aware of that, and then we can start addressing questions. Right. So let me jump in. I'll just quickly share. Okay. Yeah, so network upgrade is set, which is going to be, I believe, 29th of October, at least Singapore time, but give or take 1 to 1 day in between, depending on how everything else goes. We're also having a stock split that will happen. So which is going to be, we're going to do it after the hard fork actually happens. So that shouldn't have any effect on this, but there could be a little bit of time left. Anyhow, so the final list of things that made it: rejection of past block times, updating token address, token deprecation, restructuring of the foundation, the community governance, dToken restart, which everybody's looking for. And yeah, time is the one that got pushed out a while ago, and it's still there in PR phase. It's mostly complete, but very likely this is the last hard fork of the year. So it's not something that we expect to go in this year. Right, so this is going to be a pretty big upgrade, so don't think we want another upgrade, squeezing in another upgrade. Okay, so in terms of estimation of activation, what's going to happen is on the hard fork block, static rewards will get pretty much activated right away, but the effect of that is not going to be very apparent until people actually move out of the existing address. For existing addresses, it will retain the old behavior. But regardless, whenever a dToken restart is set, all of these will get force activated anyway, so we don't have to worry about that. And then token ownership transfer is also going to get activated. Token deprecation is going to get activated. So all three are on block. And then we want to just give a little bit of time to make sure everything runs smoothly. So about two days after, we'll activate the ascending time order. So after which blocks, which currently there's a window of time that's accepted for what the next block is. And that window of time could fall behind the current, the latest block itself. So once that's activated, it'll no longer be active. And then giving it a little bit more time, and then 2 days after, governance is something that we can start activating. Governance is going to be a big thing. It's going to be going on as more SIG is ready and that SIG is formed, all of that. We've had some write-up that's coming up. So far, we've been caught up with more immediate things in the hot fork, but now pretty much everything is done. So we should have this ready this week. Once governance is done, then the next one is going to be the big one, which is going to be the dToken restart. We want to give it a little bit of a space between that and everything else to ensure everything is functioning normally after the chain upgrade, and also make sure the infrastructure is also up to date. Because for dToken restart, one of the prerequisites is that the infra is also upgraded to Ocean, because that's what cuts down the infrastructure time that takes to process the hot fork block. Because the block is going to be it's going to be an expensive block. It's going to stall the chain for a few hours. But if Ocean is alongside Ocean, usually when we have stock split, the chain usually back up and running in about 40 to 40 minutes at worst case scenario. But then infrastructure usually takes about a couple of hours to catch up. That's usually where the delay is unpredictable. So we don't want that with dToken restart. So what we're doing is the new node-based Ocean. It's almost ready. It's there as a part of the final release, but it's under an experimental flag. I know a couple of people have been testing it and then giving feedback to the team. Really appreciate it. Please continue on it. This week we expect a few more updates there. But all that is entire Ocean is completely isolated out from anything else. So, and it's also going to get activated only if you turn it on. So it should be completely safe to run it on non-production systems at the moment. Hopefully, we will bring it to production state as well by next week. That's the target. There's a few more bugs to iron out. I think some were reported by the community as well. So Jeremy's not on call today, but they're confident that we'll have this in the next 2 weeks. So next 2 weeks, then we should be right on time for token restart, and then we basically just get that started. And so that's going to be the rough timeline of things. So far, I know a few people have been asking for the timeline, but we were focused on actually making sure that we have the update out. And now it is. Okay. Now I think maybe Peter, do you have anything else to add on static rewards or anything else that you're seeing from your side?
Sorry, just hitting the unmute button. No, I'm very excited to see static rewards kick in, because it's going to be such a huge improvement on performance. I'm actually just running a couple of tests now, final tests, I guess. Like we've been testing all the sort of the permutations, doing having the fork, dToken restart, doing token splits. I'm just continuing with that. I think you mentioned today to do a token split after we move to static, but before the dToken restart. I'm just doing this. I mean, we've gone through it. We're very confident, and obviously we've released it, so we're not expecting to find anything. We'll just keep going over it. It's such a large change. This one is. It's such a big piece of work. Kugi's done fantastic with this. He's put in a lot of the work, and he has a really great understanding of the code base. So it's been really good to work with him on this. And a lot of it has just been testing the behavior, really the sort of the outcomes of it. And that's what we're continuing to do. So that's what I'm looking at now. And then once I've done this, I'll give you the nod later. And I think you can then tell the exchanges to updates. That's where I'm at right now.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for calling out. I see that Kugi's on call today as well. That's great. So I believe I received a last. Peter mentioned quickly that they were concerned about memory leaks. But perhaps I can just sort of show this. Wait, was there somebody who wanted to say anything?
Fab raised a hand. Is that
Yeah,
Fabio?
yeah. Just one small question. I read this in one of the Telegram chats, and there was a question regarding, and I don't fully understand the impact of this, so I'm just dropping it here. From the timeline. So you walked through the timeline regarding the dToken restart, and you started the timeline at the hard fork. And isn't there like this mechanism that's called a DUSD bond that is activated before the hard fork? I'm not quite sure how that works, and do we have a timeline on that we can share or publish with the community? Maybe can you comment on that as well?
Sorry, unlocking the dToken bonds before dToken restart. Yeah, so this is not something that's on chain. So but I believe perhaps maybe Kugi can add on that when they want to do it. I think community will need to coordinate based on our timelines. So they'll have to figure out where that fits in, right? So I think that's why everybody has been chasing after timelines with us. Unfortunately, we've sort of been, like focused on actually getting everything else up and ready. But now I think we can have a more deterministic time plan and work through that. Oh, it happens on chain. Okay, let me check back on that. Then I think we'll have to work. We'll have to find out the time and do that. Okay, I thought it was something that we didn't have to do. Peter, do you have any immediate context on that?
It's just something we need to do before the dToken restart. I do believe that was the that's in the DFIP.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Kugi. We'll just reach out offline and then figure out where we can slot that in. Okay, as long as it's something that we need to do before dToken restart. I think we can plan it even a day before. In that case, would a day before be enough, or do we need more days? Oh, it needs to be done 2 weeks before restart. Okay. In that case, I think perhaps the best way to deal with it would be, is there any reason not to do it in the next week?
Yeah, I think we need to do it this week, really, to keep to the timeline.
Okay, then let's work backwards from that, from the estimated 2 weeks on when we actually plan. So dToken restart plus 1 week, so I think it's probably going to fall in sometime this week. We can plan ahead and then we can go ahead and execute that. The reality is that there could not be an exact 2 week, right? So that's the only thing. If that's totally fine, then we can just go ahead and do it this week. Hopefully, everything else goes smoothly, but if at all for some reason, if there's infrastructure that's not ready, then we may have to push the dToken restart a little bit. As long as everybody's aware of that, and if everybody's okay to go ahead and move the unlock right away this week, then I think we should be good to go on our side. Okay, so I think the other part is so people have been mentioning on the node memory usage. So I would be curious to know if you have more details on this, because so far we have not really observed anything throughout our infrastructure. But maybe I'll just quickly show one of my notes as well. So maybe this helps a little bit. So there we press enter. So when you sort of look at this, what you see here, okay, this is sort of just a simple HTOP. If you look at this, when you see this in yellow or brown, or you want to see that color, I'm completely colorblind at the moment. So when you see it in this brownish or yellow, it is usually the Linux Linux kernel's file cache. It's not the process itself, right? So you can sort of, I think, do a question mark, and you should be able to see it here. So this is kind of the cache, right? Should have done this. So this is kind of the cache. So the cache today, what we do is, there's a whole bunch of the moment RocksDB was released from EVM, this is from the beginning of EVM, cache, the node is going to end up opening a lot of files and closing them. Particularly RocksDB currently is configured to just open it and then keep handles to it open. So what happens is the kernel will just keep a cache of that, and that's not actually leaking memory. What this does is, like, if you end up throwing more at it, then the kernel will just start cleaning that out. right? It's just the Linux kernel being more effective, trying to hold on more file caches in memory. So if this is what you see, that is actually fine. That's mostly what's intended, because the expectation is that it's optimized more from a server perspective than for running people running Node in their desktops alongside everything else, right? Because that's mostly just developers. The expectation for Node is they're running isolated, which means that you want to take up as much memory as possible and then be more efficient with it, right? So, which is why the file caches is something that you hold on. But however, if this concerns you, you can either tweak how much file caches the kernel keeps, or I believe Jeremy is also trying to see if we can add in something where the RocksDB just releases the handles. But I don't expect that to change much. It'll still hold on to these, but maybe that will help once we add that on. But if you see the green, which is the resident memory itself growing, then please leave a note. I think then that's something that we'll need to definitely investigate. But so far, I don't think I've noticed any, and I don't think anybody in the team has noticed any significant memory leaks as well. But yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for keeping an eye on that. I think that's the next 1 week has to be testing from all points of view. So yeah. Shino reported that they can't run 4.2.0 right now. Do you know anything about that? No, I'm sorry, I've not heard about that. Anybody else here have any more context? Okay, and we also did not have any changes regarding, we didn't introduce any new dependency. We didn't, there should be nothing related to glibc or anything like that. Those are all done in the last upgrade, so I don't expect any large changes. Keep the notes here. Okay, I do not know what they're talking about. Yeah, maybe they can jump in on Discord. I would be keen to know what that is about. Well, so far we've been running nodes internally and everything looks stable. If anybody else in the community, I believe some people are running the Ocean nodes, and I've been getting feedbacks. Please continue to do that after the next upgrade. I think that's the places where we've had some instabilities with the Ocean node, but that's by default turned off, and it is an experimental flag. So unless they turn it on, they should not have any issues. But I'll try and follow up back on that. Okay. Any other questions? Fabio, do you want to jump into questions? If not, we can open it up for anybody here as well.
Yeah, I think so there wasn't a submission in the Google form, but I saw a few questions popping up on Telegram and on social media. And there's basically two themes when it comes to questions. So one is, and I think this is pretty easy to solve, is a written down, laid out time schedule for the hard fork, meaning this block unlocks basically what you showed, but then I shared in maybe a bit more formatted way. We can work that out this week, basically, just with the information that you already gave. And then the second thing is there is a lot of interests from the community, especially when it comes to setting up a SIG. What's the process like? How to get started? Where to get more information? How to approach it? These are the main two themes.
Yeah, first one, I think so far it's just been because we're a small team and we're incredibly focused on making sure that everything is stable. So now it's done. Now the node is released, so I think it's easy to lay out a timeline from this point going forward. So yeah, I'll reach out to your Fabio as well, and we can work together on how to do that. But that's a rough timeline, right? And we can share with the community as well. So if you need to add anything in between, we can make sure that we add it. In terms of governance SIG, so it's going to be in all the details. I'm going to start putting everything together in DeFiCH/governance repo. It is there. I think one of the calls I just shared previously as to what was the work that was done, but we've not been able to complete it. But TLDR on how it's going to work is everybody who's going to be a part of the SIGs, it's all going to be transparently laid out there. And each SIG is going to take ownership of the SIG directory, and that the governance of that individual SIG is going to be up to that SIG to decide, right? However, overall, there's going to be a small common thread. The common thread is going to be every SIG directory will have for the members the GitHub ID, so that you can kind of reach out when you need to, and if there is a key that's being used, so everybody transparently knows which is the key that's being used, right? So that's for the members, and then the common thread is SIG is going to independently create issues on what they need to do, and whenever they need something executed, so there's going to be the execution SIG where they're completely removed from any decision making unless people are involved in some other SIG as well. Then in the form of the SIG, they'll make the decisions, but not the execution for that directly. Execution process is always going to be somebody creates an issue with exactly what needs to be done, and then internally the SIG members needs to approve by comments on, why. If the SIG governance, for example, decides, let's say Oracle as an example, hypothetically, there are 5 members in the SIG, then the Oracle SIG sets their governance as we need, let's say, 3 out of 5 for something to be considered as succeeded, right? So then there needs to be 3 acknowledgements transparently on there by these members. And once the acknowledgement is there, anybody from the Oracle SIG will basically then tag in the execution SIG. Once the execution SIG is there, the execution SIG's role is primarily just to verify, hey, has there been enough acknowledgement reached? And those acknowledgement from as it was set forth, right? Because this repo is going to be open to all, who the members are, all of that. So as long as it abides by them, then anybody from the execution SIG is going to be ready to just execute it, put in the transaction hash there as to what was actually done. So the intent is once we enable this and once all the SIG has been formed, everything just follows this process. So there's going to be no more set goals on chain that's actually going up. All of this is going to be structured through the repo, and everything needs to be documented and get the approval before it actually goes in. Then on the other hand, something to do is it's going to be, we don't have a fixed plan on when to do it, but the intent is build a small little bot, which is going to monitor every single governance transaction that's going to be there. And if there's anything that's already not approved on GitHub and then pointed out to the execution SIG, then it's just going to be flagged immediately, right? And anything that's going through the SIG is also always going to go through a time lock. And so any of the execution members will be able to, they will not be able to set anything. They should not be able to set anything, but they can always immediately pull out something, clear something from, so if they see something malicious that should not have been set by any of the other execution members, then you can go ahead and immediately revoke that before that time frame comes in. So this just a overall high-level view of it, and then we'll start putting the document together, and then people can take individual ownership of how they want to drive the SIG. It's intentionally so that keeping the amount of the overall governance extremely low, and then letting the SIG decide for themselves what the governance needs to be, because different SIGs will have a completely different governance model. So it doesn't make sense to apply that in the same way, except having this common thread. The common thread is going to be who the members are, and then what is your acknowledgement model, right? So you need X out of Y acknowledgement, right? So that's it. The moment these two are set, everything else is going to be completely dependent on the SIGs. That's a high-level story, and then we'll just start publishing that repo, and then hopefully people can add on, and then take the individual SIGs in that direction. Right. All right.
Awesome. We are also approaching the 30-minute mark. Sorry. If a community member still has a question, please feel free to raise your hand or just drop the question here in chat.
Okay. If not, it's probably the biggest upgrade since the EVM upgrade. Technically, it might even be bigger in many ways. So yeah, it had to go through multiple rounds of testing. Yeah, thank you to the team and also everybody who's been testing through it. I know from a community point of view, it's been mixed emotions through a lot of it, but we're finally there. So thank you, especially to Kubi as well, who's on call pretty early today here. So it's been a lot of work. So finally, I think we'll materialize through, and yeah, it's going to be exciting to finally actually see things decentralized. It's been a stepping stone for a long time, but we've put together something so we can quickly get this out and actually start that decentralization process, so community can take more ownership of it and then figure out how things need to go on different parts. Right. All right. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. And we will update, I guess, within the next 2, 3, 4 weeks for the next session in November. And the session in November is probably the first session that Kushi is going to moderate, or at least help moderate. I'm not sure if he's here. I was expecting him maybe to introduce himself so everybody can see a familiar face next time. Oh, he's here. He's here. Hey, Kushi.
Hi. Yeah. If I can moderate the next time, I will do that.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for saying hi. Thanks everybody for joining the call. And I guess we see each other after a successful hard fork in November.